Hello everyone and welcome to CodeViz channel. Here you're learning about web development currently, and we also teach other tech skills. In today's class you're going to learn about CSS Positions, attribute selectors and overflow. Now before we start the topic, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. Also do remember that we take on projects. We take on web design and development projects, UI UX projects, data analysis projects, as well as other projects. So if you have any tech related projects, please don't feel free to contact us and we can help you undertake it. So without further ado, let's get down into today's topic. So in our last class we touched the CSS pseudo class, pseudo elements, and the other part of it was that we touched the pseudo class, the pseudo elements, and the CSS combinators. And I showed you guys that you can use the pseudo elements to attach text before and after a particular element in HTML. But that aside, now we're moving forward. So now we're going to first do the CSS positions, and the CSS positions is what allows us to move our elements about. Okay, this is something you need to know. Now I'm sure that when we did the CSS practical, if you guys remembered, when we tried moving our elements about, we used the margin and the padding. But here's the thing about margin and padding. The CSS margins and the CSS paddings don't exactly move your elements for you. They don't move it around in the web page. What they simply do is that they manipulate the space around the element, but they don't move the element for you. But when you want to actually move an element, the CSS position is what helps you does it. Let me show you a good example right now. Let's type a div.left. I'll say div.left for this. I'll say lorem ipsum lorem 10. Then let me come and target another element and say div.right lorem 10 as well. You don't really mean much. Okay. Now let's see how these two tags are going to appear. You can see the text here. They are appearing pretty normal. Nothing, no big deal between all of them. Right here. Okay. Now let's tidy it up a bit. So let's go to our main class and style it up. Let's go to our CSS and style it up. So I'm going to say CSS positions. Now take note, by default all HTML elements appear has a position of static. There are four main CSS positions: static, absolute, relative, and fixed. Static, absolute, relative, and fixed. We're going to touch all of them one by one. But by default, all HTML elements has a position of what? Static. Okay, let's come back here. Let's do this. So let's come and say left. I'll give it a width of 300 pixels. Then we'll say background is going to be hashtag, I don't know, ed whatever, hashtag FFF. Come here, let's pick a blue color. I want to use a blue color for this, or a blue with a yellow color. Then the color of the text should be navy blue, yeah, but way darker. And we're going to say height should be let's see, 62 pixels, and font size should be 24 pixels. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, let's give it one last thing, which is padding. Let's come here and make the color lighter. Let's give it one last thing, which is padding. Now see, all around padding should be 20 pixels. Now when you look at this element that is here, this is how it appears, right? So when you try to move it around using margin and padding, you are not moving the actual element itself. You're simply manipulating the space around the element. Remember, margin is used to add space outside the element, but not to actually move the element. Let me show you what I mean by that now. If I apply margin here, I'll say margin top should be, margin top 20 pixels, margin left 50 pixels. Now when I do this, what do you notice? This text, this section shifted this other section down. Wait, let me start up this second section, please. Sorry. Let's copy that. Dot right. paste it here, then reverse the color. Let's copy this background color code, then we'll bring this one here, delete you, and bring this one here. Good. Now we have our two separate sections here. Now remove the margin top from this one here. Good. Now here's the thing about margin. When you use margin to give space to your element, it actually manipulates the space around the element. What I mean by that is simple. As you can see, because this one went down, this one also went down. Let's do it again. Let's say margin top should be 20 pixels. Let me say 200 pixels instead of 20 pixels. Okay. Now that I've said the left section should be 200 pixels, that is the one on top here. Because this one now, because I gave this one a margin of 200 pixels, you can see that it also affected the second element that is here. This one also went down with it. Although I did not give this second section here a margin at all. But simply because this one has a margin, it also affected this one. That's what I mean by it. This one is simply manipulating the space around the element. That's what margin does. It doesn't really move it for you. It is not moving this element itself. And because you're manipulating the space around this element, it is also affecting this other element down here. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. No. I am not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying this is how the thing works. Right? Margin simply manipulates the space around the element. But when you actually want to move the element itself, that's where CSS position comes in. You have to first change the position of the element. Now I said again, before I said earlier, all HTML elements has a position of static by default, whether you like it or not. Okay, and you cannot move the element when it has a position of static. What do I mean by that? Watch. If I should come and if I want to move this particular element and I said, okay, let's give it top 200 pixels. I mean, you want to move it away from the top by 200 pixels, and let's say I want to move it away from the left by 500 pixels. Nothing will happen. Come here. Nothing happens. No matter how you reload the site, nothing happens. Why? Because when you want to actually move the element, you can't move an element when it has a position of static. That is how the CSS works. And remember, this static position is default. Once you insert the HTML element, it is by default it has a static position, and you can't move around. You can't move an element when it has a static position. So the first thing you have to do is what? Change the position of the element. Okay, so let's apply that now. So I'm going to remove this margin and padding from this left. I'm going to move this entire margin from the left. It's going to come back here. That is okay with me. Then I'm going to come down here and say position. Now remember, there are 4 positions: static, absolute, fixed, relative. I'm going to show you how all of them works. So let's start with position absolute. Now that I've given this thing position absolute, it might not look. Can you see what happens now? Why do you think the other one has disappeared? It hasn't really disappeared. It has simply gone behind this first one here. That is what that happened. Okay, this second section of right has gone behind this first section of what? Left. Why? Because I gave it position absolute. When you give your element a position absolute, it means let this element stand on its own. Let me just say it like that. It just means let this element stand on its own. Then you can move it about anyhow you want. Now to move it about, we'll say top, move it away from the top by 300 pixels, move it away from the left by 400 pixels, and come back here, and you can see it now. Can you see where this element is now? This particular element, look at where it is. It went up here by itself. Did it affect this other one that is down here? No. Why did it do so? Because we gave it a position of what? Absolute. Why is my padding not applying to the bottom? Let's say finish it by 20 pixels. Alright, now let's ignore that. Alright, so you can see clearly here, right? This element, the one of left, moved up and moved to the left a little by itself. It did not affect this one at all. This is what it means to actually move your elements in your what? In CSS. That's the difference. That is the clear difference between margin and using margin to what? Manipulate the space, and actually moving your element. Margin simply manipulates the space. Once you change the position and move it using this top left, you can use it that top left, bottom, or right, any one of your choice. Once you move it around using any of those ones, the element itself is what you move about. It won't affect any other element around it. And you can see that this second element is now available here. Now the reason why you couldn't see this element when I did this, when I changed the position, first of all, let's comment this out temporarily. The reason why you couldn't see the second element, the second section here, was because immediately we applied the position of absolute, this first element became a standalone element. All right, it stood on its own. That means it is its own chairman, its own boss, and all that. However, the other elements still exist, but it went behind the elements. What does that tell you? HTML elements are stacked against one another. Okay, you can stack HTML elements against one another. What does it mean? You can put one element in front of the other element. That's what it simply means. You can put one element in front of the other. Okay, and to do that, we use what is called the Z index. We use this property called Z index here. Z index. Now, the work of the Z index property is used to look at it for a position box. Look at for a position box. That means this Z index, you can only use it when you cannot use it on static elements. You must change the position of the elements before you can make use of this Z index. You can't use it on a static element. Remember what I said? You must first change the position. So it says for a position box, Z index property specifies the stack level of the box, blah blah blah. That's just long grammar. What it actually does is that it stacks HTML elements in front of the other. What does that mean? If I say Z index, okay, before I give it any number, let me do something. Let's remove this stop that is here and make this thing left 400 pixels, just left. So look at the element will appear. Can you see it? It's by the side. Let's give it left 100 pixels. This is perfect. You can see that this element is completely in front of this one, right? Let's make the left 150 pixels to give it more effect. Good. And this is okay now. Now this one is behind this one. That's why it is showing like this. But watch. Come back here. If I say Z index and I give it -2, -2, come back to your browser. This first element has gone behind the second one. So can you see what the Z index does? It stacks elements in front of the other. You can use the Z index to bring one element in front of another element, and allow you to design your work. And don't worry, when we do the second CSS practical, I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, when we do the second CSS practical, I am going to show you how it works. And you can see that it is something that's very useful. We enjoy using it, in fact. So this is what the Z index does, stacking elements in front of the other. Now, how it works is simple. When you want to send an element behind, when you want to send one element, maybe you have element A and element B. Okay, if you want to send A behind B, you use a negative figure for it. That is all. Use a negative figure. If you want to send B in front of A, sorry, if A is in front of B and you want to send B in front of A, you simply use a positive figure. That is all. When you use positive numbers, the element comes in front. When you use negative numbers, the element goes behind. At the same time, you can easily use an increment number. What does that mean? If I give this left a Z index of 2, what is going to happen is that this one that is here, okay, will go behind. So rather than give this my left here a Z index of -2 to make it go behind the right element, all I can do is come here, give this position absolute as well, and give it Z index 3, and because of this it will come in front of the other one. Okay, that's how Z index also works. It is not entirely necessary that you give your number, your Z index, a negative value if you don't want to give it a negative value, because that can affect your work. Just give the next element, the one you want to come to the actual front, a higher value, and to come in front of this one easily. Okay, so that's the thing about CSS positions. That is CSS position absolute. Now, absolute means stand on its own. So let's see. So that when you move it about, it can move out on its own. So I can see right, move it away from the right by 30 pixels, and move it away from the top by 400 pixels. And if you come back here, boom, look at where it is. It has come to the right side. Can you see it? This is the about position. When you change the position, you can move your element anywhere you want to move it to. Doesn't matter. Alright, come back here. Let's say this one has a left of 150 pixels. Let's give it a bottom. No, let's not give it a bottom. Let's give it the top of 300 pixels. And you can see that it's covering every other one. Now this one looks like it is down here. But this one, you know that this is not the last one now. These two are the last things we typed, but the positions we brought them up. So that's all on this position of absolute. So remember, there are 4 main positions. Let me type them out. The 4 The 4 CSS positions are: number 1, absolute, which I just showed you guys now. Number 2, relative. Number 3, static. I don't know why I'm putting the semicolon after it, pardon me. Static and fixed. So I have touched this, which is absolute. Let me give it a meaning. Allows the element to stand alone. That's not the actual definition of the position absolute, but that's how I understand it. That's my own understanding of it. It just makes the element stand on its own and stay wherever it wants to stay, and it doesn't bother anybody else. Okay, we're going to touch all of them one by one. And now we have static. We have static, which I've explained. This is the default position for all HTML elements. While an element has this position, it cannot be moved around, nor can z-index be applied to the elements. Okay, that is about static. It is the default position for all HTML elements, and while an element has this position, it cannot be moved around. That means you can't move it around with the top, bottom, left, and right, nor can z-index be applied to the element. Now we have relative. Okay, so let's do relative and fixed now. After we do relative and fixed, I'm going to explain how it works. So let's go there. Let's go and create 2 more sections in the HTML tag here. I'm going to come here and give it a comment and say CSS position absolute. That's what we did with these 2 that are here. So let's go and create another 2 sections. I'm going to say CSS. Let's create 2 more sections. CSS position relative. So let's give a div. I'm going to call this div long. Yeah, 100. And we're going to create another div dot short, 30. Now this is how they're going to appear in our browser. Yeah, this is perfect. So let's target them and start them up in the CSS, and I'll show you how CSS relative works. So I'm going to come here and do the let's ignore this. So we'll see dot long. I'll see width should be 100 VW. 100 VW means view width. I've said it before. It simply means view width. That means let it expand to this whole screen. But let's give it max width instead, not width. Max width 100 VW. That's good. Then height of 80 pixels. I don't know. Padding. The inside padding is going to be 20 pixels all around. The font size is going to be 24 pixels, and the color of the text is going to be navy, but the background color is going to be light sky blue. I'm okay with this. Let's come here. I want to use the hex code instead. Let's come here to change it to the hex code. Yeah, come back here. Alright, I'm okay with this. Oh wow, it's actually bigger than it. The text actually came out more than the stuff. Alright, let's make the height 180 pixels instead. Much better, right? We can see this one clearly. So let's go and do the short as well. Let's start up the short as well before we apply our positions. Dot short. We'll say max width should be 60 VW. Height 80 pixels again. Padding all around should be 20 pixels as well. Font size should be the same, 24 pixels as well. Color this time should be dark red, and the background color background color should be light. Is there a light red? I handle that as a light red, so let me just say red. And after the red, you know what we're going to do. Come here, change to hex code, make it a lighter version of red. Then come here, change it to a hex code again. Alright, we have these two elements that are here. We have these two sections that are here. So let's not waste any time and let's start up this. Let's apply positions to these two elements. Are you ready? So let's apply the position of relative to it. So let's give this second one, this short one, a position relative. Now, when you give your element a position of relative, okay, yes, you can move the element about, but it doesn't mean that the element becomes a standalone element. Okay, what relative does is you can use it to adjust the elements. You can use it to move the element about, but it will still move about according to what is around it. It move about in respect to what is around the other elements around it. That means if there's an element on top of it or below it, it will take that one into consideration when adjusting itself. What does that mean here? If I say, now, if you remember in these previous two elements here, when I said top and bottom, they moved out of their positions completely. They were down here before, but they came up here, came here, without caring about anybody else, because they have a position of what? Absolute. But when you use position relative, let's do it for the bottom one here. I'll say position relative for short, then I'll say top 200 pixels and left 150 pixels. And if you come down here, this one, can you see that the top 200 pixels did not go above this previous element? And it's not because this one has a position of static, no. It didn't go above this previous element because this one has a position of what? Relative. And what it means by relative is that move it away from the top by 200 pixels, but away from the top by the previous element. It says put the previous element, that is its previous element, into consideration. I don't know if you guys get it. When you say position absolute, the element becomes a standalone element. That means it can go above and beyond this position. It doesn't matter which element comes before or after it. It will go wherever it wants to go and just stay on top of them or stay behind them. But when you give an element's position relative, it is completely different. Even though you can move the element about, it will still consider the other elements around it. Alright, it's like, let's say for example you're in a bus. When you're in a bus, right, and somebody is trying to come in and maybe get into the seat right next to you, you know you have to adjust yourself for that person to move in. Now, you're not changing your seat, but you have to adjust yourself. You have to maybe turn your leg around so that the other person that is about to enter can easily move in. That is what position relative is about. So I hope you guys understand that. Let's make this top 200 pixels. Let's make it 100 pixels instead, so that it will come a bit closer. I don't like it so far. So that's the way position relative works. It moves the element about, but still considers the other elements around it. Now, this element did not go above this element because of the position relative. Not that I can't make it go above it. I can come and make it go above it. I can just say top minus 100 pixels, and it might go. See, now it's touching it. You can see that this element is now currently touching it. The short section is touching the long section. That's because I use a negative number. When you use a negative number, it's removing from it, but it is still considering its position next to this element here, next to this other section here. It is not completely disregarding this one, unlike this two that has position of absolute. It is not disregarding this one at all. It is still taking this one into consideration and saying that okay, I will move, but I'll move according to where you are. Alright, that's how the relative works. It moves the elements according to other elements around it. So to take those other elements around it into consideration when it is moving up and down, left and right, or whatever. That is position relative. And you can still apply z index to this. You can still apply z index to it. You can say z index minus 2. And if you come here, let me give this one the minus 100 pixels. Minus 100 pixels. And if you come back here, you can see that this short element has moved behind the long one. Z index can be applied to any element as long as you change its position. Once the position is not static, you can apply Z index to it. Okay? So let's remove this. I don't want to apply Z index to it. And also, let us say I want to centralize this element. I want it to be in the center of the page. All I have to do is this. Let's remove this left. All I have to just say is margin auto, and you can see it has come to the center of the page. When you use margin auto, that means automatically assign spacing all around the element itself, and that's what it did, and it now brought it to the center for me easily. So that is position relative. I hope you guys can understand it. It moves your element about, but it moves it according to the other elements that surrounds that correct element. Absolute makes the element a standalone element where you can move it up and down. It doesn't consider the other elements around it. But relative considers other elements around it when you're moving it about. It doesn't just move on its own. No, it says, okay, since there's somebody above me, I will move away from this person by this certain distance. But if it's absolute will be like, oh, I don't care about who is above me or who is below me. I'll move above that person, or I'll move below that person and go to where I need to go to. That's the difference between the both of them. So let's touch the other one, which is position fixed. Let me give you this thing here. Let me leave this here instead, so you guys can remember it's position absolute. I believe I put it there, right? Yes, good. So let me come and explain this thing. It's surrounding elements into again, this is not the actual definition. This is just the way I understand it and the way I'm breaking it down for you. I don't know if you guys understand that. So that is position absolute, relative, static. And now let's touch the last one, which is position fixed. Now position fixed is like the higher version of absolute. It makes an element stand alone, and when I mean by stand alone, it means it stands on its own and it doesn't move for anybody. It doesn't care. Okay, what does that mean? Let me show you guys now. Let's go back to the HTML. I'm going to go on top of this place and I'm going to put a section in this beginning part here before the CSS combinators. I'm going to put a new section here. I'm going to say div.top lorem 20. Okay, div.top lorem 20. You can see it here. I put it immediately after the body tag. That is before the CSS combinators that is here, which is what we did in the previous class. Then I'll come to my CSS here. That means it should be on in my browser. That one should be on top. You can see it now. It is on top. Every other one is at the top of the page, which is good. Then let's come here and see CSS and position fixed. So I'm going to say .top, and with .top I'm going to do okay, let's give it a width and height. Okay, let me just copy everything that's here. I don't have strength. Copy, paste. Let's see, we're going to change the color of the text. Should be CC hashtag CC5500, and background should be orange. Then this orange, I'm going to change it to a hex code and make the lighter version. That is all. So let's come and check it out. Yeah, this is okay by me. This color is not dark enough. Better. Okay, so with this done, let's give it one last thing, which is margin auto. Then I'm going to give it a position of fixed. Now when you give an element the position of fixed, that element will stay exactly where you put it. It won't move around for anybody. Oh, margin auto, sorry. Move margin auto, sorry. Don't mind me, sorry, leave the marks. Sorry, ignore what I said previously. Position fixed works nonetheless. So doing that now, when you give an element a position fixed, that means that position will stay where it is, whether you are scrolling up and down the page. No matter what, it will stay exactly where you told it to stay. That means if I say position fixed and I say top should be away from, go away from the top by 20 pixels and away from the left by 50 pixels. This is what to do. This is its permanent position. You can see that this one came up. That means if I scroll down the page, this element will stay exactly where it is. It doesn't matter. You can see it. This section is still staying exactly where it is. That is the work of position fixed there. No matter what, it will stay exactly where you told it to stay. Whether you are scrolling up and down the page and anything, that is position fixed. It is a standalone element though. Yes, it is a standalone element. It is standing on its own. But when I mean standing alone, it means unshakable, unmovable. You understand what I mean? Okay, when you are moving up and down, you can see that the elements that has these two sections that I give position absolute, as you're moving them about, it is still moving up and down with the web page. Okay, but this position of fixed will move up and down with the web page. It completely ignores this scrolling on the web page and just stays where it stays. You guys mostly see this for navigation bars. When you enter into a website and you're scrolling down the website, you see that the navigation bar will still remain up there where it is. It won't come down. Okay, the navigation bar will remain up there where it is. It will not come down. That is the work of this position fix. You can do that with this position fix. You can create your nav bar, put it on top of your site, and give it position fixed, and no matter what, nothing can bring it down. As you're scrolling down the web page, it will still stay up. Okay, so let me go and explain the position fixed here. Okay, so that is all on CSS positions. Again, please, this is not the actual definition of these positions. If you want to know the actual definitions, you can check out online materials on Free Code Camp, Free Code Academy, w3schools.com or whatever. But this is not the actual definition. This is just my own understanding of it. Okay, I'm just trying to simplify it for you guys to understand. That is all. Okay. So with this, we finish the CSS positions. We finish the absolute, the relative, the static, and the fixed, and you can practice this also. And do not worry, we are going to make use of this when we actually do our second CSS practical. Okay, we're going to make use of this when we do our second CSS practical. So with this, let's move on to the next topic of today, which is what? The CSS. We are done with the CSS positions. So let's move on to the next topic of today. Oh yeah, and I know guys, I said I've not touched, you guys might say I've not touched CSS static, but CSS static is the default one. And basically, once you insert an element, it already has static, which means you cannot move that element about. You cannot give it z index. Okay, you can't move the element, you can't give it z index. You can only manipulate the space around the element. That's what static does. And there's no point in showing you guys that thing, because by default, all these elements that are here already have the position of what? Static. This and this already has the position of static. So ignoring those two aside, let's touch the next topic of today, which I believe should be attribute selectors. Yes, the CSS attribute selectors. Now, just like the name sounds, the CSS attribute selectors target elements by their attribute name or by their attribute property. Alright, like so. Let's go to the HTML file. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to see, I'm going to create a section. I'm going to give it div.use. I'm going to say lorem 10 or lorem 20. Oh, sorry, lorem 20. Come back to my CSS. I'm going to copy a certain style. Let me copy everything that is here. We'll say .use. Okay, and this is .use that is here. Let's move it down a bit. I'm going to give it position. Oh no, sorry, I'm not supposed to use dot use. Pardon me. Okay, let's just give it position relative. And top 40 pixels, so it will come down. All right, good. 120. All right, so this is our listing here, our section of what. Okay, let me change the color so to appear a bit different to avoid confusion. Let's go to green. Very light green. So these are what our element of our section of views. But remember, we are talking about the attribute selectors, which targets elements by the attribute that exists inside of them. So I'm not supposed to actually use this. I'm not supposed to target it using the class method. I'm not supposed to use the class selector here. I'm supposed to use the attribute selector. So to do that, what I'll use is this. I will call out the name of the attributes here. I will call out this attribute statement here. So I'm going to come here and I'll use a square bracket. Then I'll say class is equals to use. That is all. And if I come back here, it still applies to this. You can see that I didn't cancel it out. The reason why I didn't cancel out is simple. Watch. If I should remove this E from this use, come back here, you can see that the text has returned back to normal here. Okay, you can see that. But if I should put the class of use, you can see it here, right? Sorry. So you can see that the element has done this. So that's the work of the attribute selectors. You can use it to target element based on their the attribute that exists inside of them. So you just have to call out the name of the attribute equals to the value of the attribute, and you must do it inside this square brackets here, not outside of the square brackets. That's the attribute selector. It's actually pretty easy. If you want it to be more precise, you can target it by saying something like this. I can see h2 class. Okay, let me not give it a class. I'm going to give it an attribute of target. Target this text. I don't know. It's just a random something. Don't take it to heart. lorem 30. And if you come back here, this is the h2 that is here. So let me start it up as well. I'm going to copy this. So if you want to target this one in a more precise manner, you can just come down and say h2 open bracket target equals to this text, exactly what we give to it. Then let's copy this exact same thing. I'm not going to change anything there, and just paste it. The only thing I'll do is I'll reverse the color, copy this color, paste it here, copy this color. Okay, copy this color, delete, paste it here. And if you come back to your browser, you can see it now. It has applied to this to this section. So that's the CSS attribute selector there. Nothing much to it. It just targets an element based. It targets an element based on the attributes that exist inside of it. That is all. Now you can target it either by calling out the name of the tag, and then inside the square bracket you declare the attribute you want to target, or you can just use the square bracket and target this very attribute you want to target. Easy, done. Nothing special there. So let's go to the next one, which is the CSS Overflow. Please ignore the back. It's just my neighbor is getting groovy. That's all. So let's touch the last one, which is CSS Overflow. That's the last topic we're going to do today. So let's touch that quickly. Okay, so in the overflow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simple section. I'm going to say div dot big. I'm going to say lorem 200. That's a lot of text. This is the last thing we're going to do for today's class, so let's just be ready for now. Oh, I already have a class of big. Oh, pardon me. Let me use, instead of big, let me use large. Large. Yeah, that's better. Okay, good. So let's go and start the section up. So dot large width, I want to say max width should be 400 pixels. Max height 500 pixels. That is too much, isn't it? 300 pixels. Font size should be 24 pixels. Color of the font should be #2C1107. And I'll say background should be let's just use a blue color. Let me just say blue, then come here and select another blue entirely. I want a very light blue. Okay, that's okay with me. So let's check it out. Okay, good. Look at the element appears. I like that. Let's go here and make this width 500 pixels. I'm going to give it position relative to move it so that it can come on its own. So position top 150 pixels. Okay, so now it's on its own. Now what do you notice about this element that is here? You can see that this our little box cannot contain all this text that is inside of it. Can you see that? Can you guys see that? It can't contain all the text that is inside of it, but at the same time we don't want this text to actually come outside of the box. We want it to fit into the box, and that is where CSS Overflow comes into play. Okay, so what we'll do here is simple. Let me first give this a padding. I forgot to give it a padding, so let's give it a padding of 30 pixels all around. That's okay by me, right? Yeah, that's very okay. So as I was saying, now we don't want this text to actually come out of the box. We want it to be inside the box, okay? But the text is too much for what? This box, that is this section that is here. So this is where CSS Overflow comes into play. All you have to do is come and give it this. Just say overflow. You can use the short form overflow Y. Okay? Overflow Y means if there's an overflow of text on the Y-axis, the Y-axis means vertically. There's an overflow of the text on the Y-axis. What do? Just come and say overflow Y. Then you can give it one of 4 features. You can give it auto, hidden, scroll, or visible. Now hidden means hide the remaining text. Click on hidden, the remaining text will disappear. Look at it here. The other text will disappear. That's what it simply does. That's overflow hidden. It's not that the text doesn't exist. It's saying, okay, any text that goes outside of the section, hide it. We don't want to see it at all. That is overflow hidden. But if you don't, that is overflow Y hidden, or just overflow hidden in general. But if you don't do that, you can give it another feature. Let me see overflow hidden. Hides the content that goes outside its section. Let's use another one. Overflow Y. Let's use scroll. Okay, let's use auto. No, auto automatically now fits the the whole text into the section, and it gives it a scroll bar by the side. Can you see that? It fits everything into the section and gives it a scroll bar by the side. So you can now enter. If you put your mouse inside the section, that means you can scroll up and down your page. But if your cursor should enter into this section, you can scroll up and down the section itself. That is the overflow auto or overflow scroll. So that's what the overflow auto does. Or you can use the overflow scroll. They do the same thing. Okay, you can see here clearly, right? Good. So let me just it down for you guys, and let's say the overflow and wraps what is it, wrap or wrap? Yeah, fits all content into the section and adds a scroll bar by the side. A scroll bar, okay, and adds a scroll bar. And let's comment this one out. So this overflow can be applied both to the x and to the y axis. That means you can have overflow y, you can say overflow y if the element exceeds the section vertically. That's if the content exceeds the section vertically, use overflow y. If it exceeds the section horizontally, use overflow x. One of the two, not s, sorry, x. Overflow x. Look at it, specifies handling of overflow in the horizontal direction, while overflow y specifies handling of overflow in the vertical direction. Alright, or you can just use the short form, which is what? Overflow. That's all. Once you just say overflow auto. And whether it has an x-axis overflow or a y-axis overflow, it automatically fits all your text in for you and gives you a scroll bar. That is the CSS overflow. It's a very short and very easy topic. Okay, so you can see how it works here. Easy, right? Not too complex. Okay, so with this we are done with our today's topic. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and so that you can be notified whenever we post a new video. Also remember, please do remember, we take on projects as well. So if you have any web development project, graphic design, UI UX, data analysis project, or software development project, please don't hesitate to contact us so that we can help you do it. Once again, this is CodeBase channel. Thanks for listening to our course for today, and have a nice day.